Hi everybody. I hope you're doing well today. Our lesson is when relationships lead to pressure. And when we talk about relationships, we're talking about friendships, relationships with our family members, but we're also talking about romantic relationships. So there are two two sentences that we want to pay attention to. If you really cared about me, you'd do this, that, or the other. And the other one is, don't be such a baby, loser. You know you really want to do whatever. There are other ways that the pressure can be put on people, but those two are very common. And we'd like to know how you feel when this kind of pressure is put on you. And is it a good feeling? For me, it's not. I think it strains a relationship myself. Have you ever had anybody say something like this to you? Most of us have. Uh, and it's how we deal with it is how things move on. And that leads to the question of how would you respond? How can you deal with that? How can you deal with that and still maintain a friendship if that's what your goal is? So this has a whole lot of getting up and moving around kind of stuff to it, but we don't have that opportunity. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read the 6 questions or thoughts for us to think about. What are some examples of things people get pressured to do or not do? And think about both friendships and romantic relationships. So I'm sure that we can all come up with a really big list of things we've been pressured to do. We tend to think of bad things, focus on the negative things that people pressure us into, but there are good things that we get pressured into as well. We tend to not think about them because there's usually a good outcome. But it is pressure, whether it's positive or negative. The next is who or where can pressure in relationships come from? Well, if it's two people, then the pressure is going to come from one or the other. Sometimes there's outside influences that one person picks up and runs with and pressures the other to follow. But we want you to think about it. Who can pressure you? The next is what thoughts and feelings come up when someone feels pressured. What problems can pressure lead to? I don't want to give you all the answers. I can come up with all kinds of stuff. In a lot of our expectations and boundary groups, we talked about friends wanting us to help them shoplift, for instance, and how you would respond. And I was very happy when most of you responded that you wouldn't be part of it. And that's a wonderful thing. Some of you were able to maintain that friendship, and some were not. Some chose not to. But there's all kinds of problems that pressure can lead to, and a lot of emotional feelings when we're getting pressured or when we are pressuring somebody else. And how does the media show pressure in relationships? Who pressures who? What happens? And try to think of specific examples when you're thinking about that. The last is, how can someone deal with being pressured? And we all deal with everything in a variety of ways. Of course, we're going to follow that list of thought-provoking questions with a list of strategies for dealing with peer pressure. And I can show you the book. Don't know if you can zoom in or not, but you'd say no. Know your limits and boundaries. You get to set the limits about what you will and will not do. Even if you've said yes to something in the past, you can always decide to start saying no. You don't have to keep doing something just because you did it a few times. Think about the consequences is the next one. What could happen? I'm going to go back to that shoplifting scenario. What could happen? Well, you can get in trouble with the law and in trouble with parents and family and church friends and the community and get a bad reputation, and there's all of that. Those are things that could happen. That's why I was so glad when so many of you said you would just back away and not get involved and tell them no and try to convince that friend not to do it themselves. So I think you guys responded very well to that. But we do need to stop and think about what's going to happen when somebody's pressuring us. Listen to yourself is the next. If you feel uncomfortable or unsure, pay attention to that feeling. Usually the inner feeling is a pretty good guide. Keeps us out of trouble, keeps our life on track. You guys will enjoy this one. Try to stay calm. The calmer you are, the more you'll be able to think clearly and choose your actions carefully. Take deep breaths and relax your muscles. And that will fall back on our flipping your top. When our brain is calm, cool, and collected, it is like this. And we can think clearly because all the different parts of our brain that does the thinking, logic, and all that is working. But if we do not stay calm and we flip our lid, then we have fight or flight going into effect, and that's not usually a good thing. But I figured you guys would like that one, a reminder of our previous lessons. Don't forget to communicate. Use your words to explain and your feet to leave if you need to. So that is another strategy. And the last is, if you need help, talk to someone who supports you and who you trust. Somebody who typically gives you good advice and wants the best for you. Somebody who wants you to be having a good life and doesn't have their own agenda. If you're feeling pressured by somebody, that's not the person you would want to talk to about it, because it will just blow it up bigger. So on our question list, you guys were supposed to be writing those down, and then we were going to work in groups so that each of you could give examples of situations where who could pressure you in a relationship, or where does the pressure come from. Everybody would have different examples, and the groups were going to work on that together and then apply what strategies to the different situations. We're not going to be able to do that today, but you can do that yourself and sort out how you wish to deal with things in the future. So when somebody starts pressuring you, be it a good friend or somebody who's out there in our outer circles, most of you were pretty clear cut when we were doing our friendship circles, that if somebody was way out in an outer circle, you could very easily just push them away and not feel the pressure from them. It would be easy to say, no, I don't want to be involved. And yet the people that are closest to us are the hardest ones to resist. And so if somebody is close to you and they are pressuring you to do something that you don't feel right about, then you probably wouldn't want to talk to that person. You need to find somebody else. And if you want to make comments on our Facebook page, I'm monitoring that pretty good, so I can respond back with you. If you want to direct it to Bethany or Kelsey about anybody, we're all monitoring the comments, and everybody can respond to you fairly timely. So we would love to hear from you and let us know how your summer is going. It's early summer, but let us know how things are. Talk to you soon. Bye.